So we are in the worksheet named Sheet 3. We'll be considering the same range D5 to D18 as we had considered in our previous session. We also have the VBA editor open, wherein we are currently in module 2. We have written a new macro subroutine named useful underscore range underscore properties underscore methods. So we'll be demonstrating the use of this property range.cells and the methods range.offset and range.resize. We'll also be trying multiple variations of using this property and methods by also using the read-only properties such as range.rows.count, range.columns.count, range.worksheet.name, and range.address. Now we shall declare a range variable, let's say RR1, dim RR1 as range. To this range variable RR1, we shall assign the range D5 to D18 of the worksheet name Sheet 3. Note that this Sheet 3 is the name of the worksheet, and it also appears in the VBA editor within the parenthesis. So, and further, we shall be applying the properties range.cells and the methods range.offset and range.resize onto this variable RR1, and the output will also be a range. To assign that output, we need another range variable. So let's dim RR2 as range. So currently we have two variables, that is RR1 and RR2 of the type range. So both these lines, both these ways of assigning a range to a variable works. However, the moment you change this particular sheet name that is getting displayed in the Excel window, our first method of assigning the range to the variable, it fails. So I would in fact recommend to go ahead with this second method, and this would be the revised method of assigning a range to a range variable. So let me comment out the first three lines of code. So, and we shall now proceed ahead to the range.offset method. So using the range offset method, we can offset a particular range object by a specified number of rows and a specified number of columns. So what does that mean? That means that a particular range location which has been assigned to a particular range object, so that particular range location will get offsetted by a specified number of rows and a specified number of columns. Let us understand that with the context of the range variable RR1 to which the range location D5 to D18 of the worksheet named sheet_3 has been assigned. So if we were to offset this particular range location by one number of columns and assign that particular range location, assign this new location to the range variable RR2. Let's do that using the range.offset method. So let us use the set statement. So set RR2 equal to RR1 dot offset. Here are two arguments that we need to enter. First one is the row offset, which means the number of rows by which you want to offset the range location. And in our particular case, we do not want to offset by any number of rows. So we'll enter 0 as the row offset argument. For the column offset argument, we'll enter one column. So 1 will be the column offset argument. Another thing to note is that VBA allows you to omit a particular argument in case you do not want any offset along that particular axis, which is to say, in this particular case, we do not want any offset to happen along the row axis. So we can choose to omit this argument as well. So let us do that. Let us copy this code and enter it over here and omit the row offset argument. We shall be running both these lines of code to verify whether our understanding is correct or not. Let me also copy these two lines of code, enter it over here and re-enter it over here. Let me insert a toggle breakpoint so that we can directly resume from here when we'll be running the macro. Let me reset the code and let me run our macro. So right now we are at this location. Active cell has changed to B2. Now we'll be assigning the particular range location using row offset argument as 0 and the column offset argument as 1. RR2 has been assigned a range location. Let us select RR2. And so it is, this particular range location has been selected as expected. Let us move on to the next line of code where we had omitted the row offset argument. Let us execute this line of code. Now we'll be selecting the range location assigned to the variable RR2. And so it is. So as expected, both these methods of entering arguments to the row offset and the column offset work. Important point to note is the arguments that we had entered in row offset and column offset. They can be positive, they can be 0, and they can be negative as well. So whenever we are entering a negative offset argument, what does that mean? Let us run a line of code with let's say -1 as the column offset argument. Let us shift the toggle breakpoint and insert the toggle breakpoint over here. So our understanding is that since the column offset is -1, the direction of offsetting will get reversed and it will be towards the left. So if since RR1 is this particular range location, and if I offset it by one column, and enter the column offset argument as 1, it is shifting towards the right. But if I enter as -1, I expect it to shift towards the left, so that the new range location expected is this one, which is C5 to C18. Let us check via our macro if this is indeed the case. Let me run our macro. And so that's it. So yeah, our understanding is correct in this case. One final pointer regarding range.offset. Over here, over these few lines of code, we had applied the range.offset in this over this entire range object. If we want, we can apply this range.offset method at the cell level as well. For instance, in certain cases, we might always want to move on to the very first cell of a range object and offset it by a particular number of columns. Let us say we want to offset the first cell by 1 column. So in that case, you just the code doesn't vary much. You will use the dot cells property over the range object RR1. So I shall only insert cells 1, 1, and so this line of code is like, set RR2 equal to RR1 dot cells 1, 1 dot offset. The row offset argument is I have omitted it, and the column offset is 1, and we expect this particular cell to get selected and assigned to the variable RR2. Let me insert the toggle breakpoint over here, and let us run our macro. So we'll be assigning this particular range location to the variable RR2. Let us do the same, and yes, it is indeed the case. So so the pointers to take away regarding range.offset is range.offset property. Range.offset method requires 2 arguments, row offset and column offset, and each of those arguments can be positive, negative, and it can be 0, provided this is valid within the framework of the worksheet. And we can also apply the offset property at the cell level by adding dot offset to range.cells. So with that, we shall move on to our next method, which is the range.resize.